All right, we are live from Script Summit. We are doing the breakdown of episode 4 of Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. I am with fellow analysts Kristy Leigh Lussier and Malcolm Reece Taylor. Thanks for being with us. All right, so we just sat through it at Script Summit. What do you guys think? First thoughts, Kristy?
I actually love this episode because we're starting to see some elements that tie into the Lord of the Rings and things pretty much from that background, and I really love that. I thought they did a great job on introducing things that fans have had questions about for a long time, and we got a few answers, so I thought that was cool. Overall, pace slowed down a little bit more for me in this one versus episode 3, but overall I think it was still pretty solid, and we got a lot more story in this one.
Malcolm?
Definitely a lot more story. I want to piggyback on that because I noticed how there was a lot of juxtaposition. But particularly one of the things I did note was, like, towards the beginning of the story, you had the queen in the castle but she was pretty much alone at the altar.
Yeah.
Whereas the guy who's been it seems like he's trying to sneak in his power from behind the scenes. He was seen amongst the people. So
the statesman,
Farazan.
Yeah, the Numenor, Farazan.
I'm so
the man of the people. Yeah. It's really interesting seeing him be the man of the people because he has all of the guild badges, which is a really nice visual subtext of this is the guy that knows everybody. And when we're introduced to him, he's shaking hands, and even with the lowest of class, which I thought was really interesting. So I think you're right. It would be interesting to watch him to see if he's power hungry. And what's really cool is we had a bunch of Script Summiters here with us watching the show. Yeah. So thanks for coming.
Get the Calhoun rules.
I paid him for that. So what I really appreciated was early on in the episode was seeing Adar, father, come in, and this empathy and this almost loving fatherly relationship he has with these orcs, and this little almost ritual they had around the death of the orc, because they've always been just a pure evil. We've never really seen any kind of a human element to them. So to bring that in, I actually really appreciated that depth.
Yeah, that's kind of one of the things that I really like, is that what we know of in our understanding of the Third Age, which is the Lord of the Rings movies and books, that the orcs, I mean, they originally were elves. They were really like normal people, and kind of evolved over thousands of years to become that pure evil that we know in the Third Age. And so it was really neat to kind of watch this. It's like this evolution that you're kind of seeing how the orcs become what they are.
Yeah.
And I thought that was neat that they touched on that.
So was that them becoming orcs, is that from Morgoth? Or is that something that just kind of, they were tainted somehow and corrupted?
So, well, yeah, I mean, tainted or whatever you want to call it from Morgoth, basically. I would assume, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. What do you think?
Now, with me, when it came to that particular scene, as y'all said, I'm so used to just seeing the orcs that are trying to destroy that it caught me off guard. I'm watching like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Are these?
They're not just pure evil.
Yeah, because I'm not gonna say I'm new to Lord of the Rings. I've seen the movies, but I haven't read through the books. So all I've known is what I've seen in one film's diegesis. So comparing it to what happened in this one, it caught me off guard.
I really appreciate it because it reminded me of when Kristy and I were breaking down the Wheel of Time.
Yes. And
we watched that one episode where we thought, oh, there might be a little bit here of humanity in the Trollocs, and no, they just ate each other. Yep. So it was to see that kind of depth. I think as far as a villainous creature like that comes across, is I appreciate it. And then of course, I am just team Arondir. The guy can do no wrong to me. And when he gets out and he's saving his girl Bronwyn, and I'm just going, please don't go full Boromir on my boy. I don't want him getting hit with like 15 arrows, and he still is like the Energizer Bunny of getting arrows. I was like, just keep it going. So, but luckily they saved the day and they kept it going, because I was worried that was going to happen, because I'm just fully invested in this guy.
Yeah, you do really like him, so much so that you were mad he had to save the kid and put his life at risk to save the kid.
All right, so Bronwyn's kid, Theo, I don't know if it's because I'm a dad of a teenager, but this kid drives me nuts. Like, even when he's trying to do good things, like get food for people who are starving, he's still just rude and emo enough that it gets under my skin. It's like, even though he's trying to do great things, I can't stand the kid. I'm like, let the orc kill him. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, what? But so the fact that Arondir had to save him, I was like, oh man, I'm over it. But and then he's got the sword, and then he pierces himself with the sword, and the sword starts to grow. And so I thought, well, I would have liked to see him stab the orc.
And he just cuts his fingers off.
And feed the sword that way. But then the sword shrunk again, and that threw me off. So I didn't quite understand that. Is it a lightsaber of blood? So I was a little concerned about that.
I thought it was cool, though, that he did use the sword to cut off the orc's fingers, because obviously, like, we know that the ring is cut off of Sauron.
It's good foreshadowing.
Right?
I love that. That's a really great note. So Galadriel, I love. I think the actor steals the show. I know there's some hate on Morwood, but I do like her performance because to me it's showing a younger, more rough around the edges Galadriel. She paces back and forth like she's a Sith. You know, she's just upset and irritated and wants to get going. Whereas before, the first time when we saw her in the Fellowship, she's measured in her approach. She's very calm and she's methodical. And so I think we're seeing her before that happened. And so I like the fact that she's impatient, she's angry, and she's arrogant. You know, she brings out, you're not going to let my friend go. You're not going to help us fight this war. I want to talk to your dad. You know, she feels like a full Karen. Right, on the queen, and it doesn't work out, but I appreciate seeing that in the character, because that shows me where she's going to grow as far as growth goes. What do you think?
It does, and I also want to bring up something else, is that with her character, especially in this episode, she refers to herself as the Storm or the Tempest at one point.
And Tempest.
Next thing you know, she's in jail. So the whole idea that you can't cage the storm, I thought was kind of funny right there. But
that was nice.
She also needed to. It was something that she needed to learn, especially from. I forget the name of her cellmate. I'm trying to.
Hellbrand.
Yeah,
the guy.
Yeah,
where he's telling her basically, you're going at this from a warrior's perspective. That's not what you need here. You have to learn
subtlety.
Right.
Yeah.
I did like that. I like that, how they're complimenting each other's characters. So, I mean, if it's okay with you guys, want to kind of open it up to the audience.
Sure.
You guys, any comments from the crowd? Go ahead.
Summit rocks.
Yeah, Script Summit is awesome. Go ahead, Lee.
I missed the very end when you guys were talking about what must have happened when I left. They were having some sort of touching moment amongst the orcs.
Yeah, there was.
No, that was before. That was earlier.
Yeah,
so you missed.
Part.
Yeah,
I came in late, left early. But quick, I don't have to have seen it to ask you guys the question: is there a disadvantage to humanizing your bad guys?
That's a great question.
I don't think, in my opinion, I like to see that kind of a depth in that, because it overall creates more questions about the characters. Now I want to learn more about the culture. It's not just evil. Right, I think giving it a bit of depth is nice, but there are sometimes structures out there that allow you to do like full evil, like the Darth Sidious that doesn't really have a background. Right, he is just the embodiment of evil. But that's what Sauron is, but his minions can have depth, and I think that provides plenty of opportunity for storytelling.
I think that I think you have a point, and I kind of agree with you, because we were just having this conversation at lunch. There's a part of us that really doesn't want to know like the villain origin story kind of thing. Mm-hmm. However, we already know at this point that they were elves, that they were people at the time, and then evolved into the orcs. So we already kind of know their origin. It's just, this is watching kind of a bit of that evolution of it happening.
Yeah, and you can also even attribute it to just more world building, right? We're getting more about the world itself and the cultures within it. So I always think that's great in television as well. Any other comments? Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to piggyback off of that, because when I was watching it, I was like, yes. Because I remember watching Lord of the Rings, and Saruman says, did you know that orcs were once upon a time elves?
Yeah.
And to see the orcs and to see him very human-like, beginning to change,
right,
and that very touching moment of that ritual was like, now all of a sudden they had me emotionally hooked.
Right.
It's like, ooh, I want to know that.
Good.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep.
But here's my other question: the sword, is that Sauron's sword?
The sword, is it
Yeah.
Sauron's?
I-
Did he forge it, or was it
don't know if
Morgoth's?
I don't know if that. I think that's kind of where they're going with it. I'm not sure, to be honest with
See,
you.
because when I think of Fellowship of the Ring and they show him fighting Isildur and his armies, I think he was using like an axe or a hammer or a mace or something.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a sword, so I wonder if it was like maybe Morgoth's sword or something. It's a really great question.
Yeah.
We don't know.
I should know my
It's
original better.
definitely evil, and I'm going to call it blood lightsaber. Anything else? Go ahead.
I just actually have a question.
Question.
This is the
Teddy.
first I've seen of the series.
Oh, first episode in.
Yeah. So I'm a bit confused.
Spoilers.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't care about those. But who was the father of the orcs?
So they called him Adar, and that's Elvish. It translates as father.
As father,
He's obviously
yeah.
not the father. My assumption is he's an underling or maybe like a general of Sauron,
Right.
waiting for his return. I mean, that's what it seems like.
There seems like they're planting seeds because in this time frame, or the kind of rule and understanding is that Sauron is out in the world. He's just disguised, and nobody knows who he really is. So, is it this guy? Is it the father? Are we watching that?
Is
from
it the
start?
statesman in Numenor, whatever his name was?
Yeah, is it Halbrand? Is it whoever? Who could be?
Is it Galadriel?
In a previous episode, somebody falls from the sky, and so there's a theory that like maybe that's Sauron. That kind of thing.
I was just kind of curious because, like, again, this is my first seeing of the series.
Yeah.
I was kind of like, who's that dude?
Yeah,
So,
and we haven't touched
wonder
on
if
something
they
big
touch on
too.
him.
Hit me.
Which I'm
What do you want
excited
to What do you want to touch on, Kristy Leigh?
I think the biggest thing in this episode that was so cool was seeing that when they discover Mirithir. I can't pronounce it.
Mithril?
Mithril. That's it.
Mithril,
Thank
the
you.
mythic metal of Mithril.
Yeah, which is awesome because obviously Aragorn's crown is made from that. Bilbo Baggins'
Yeah, his chainmail is Mithril.
which then gets passed on to Frodo, which saves his life. Like it's made from that metal that's
cool.
there, and it's one of the metals that is used to help forge, I believe, some of the rings,
Of
like
power?
the 11 rings, and then I think Galadriel's ring. So it's important that we see that kind of birth of where that metal came from, because Tolkien touched on it, but there was never actually like a full.
That's
here's
cool.
how they came about it, and here But also they're mining in a very important area, which
Right.
is
So that makes me wonder: are they mining in that area where they end up releasing the Balrog
Yes.
that we see in Fellowship?
Yeah,
because
Moria,
they get greedy. So I'm really curious about that.
No, that is it.
It is that mine.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I bet you felt like Lord of the Rings fans are like, ah.
Yeah.
I really did appreciate seeing them sing to the stone, because in Dwarvish culture, they speak to the stone, and the stone tells them through song and things like that, and reverberations, that they can find out different types of metals. So when there is the collapse, and we see the queen singing to the stone, and you see the stone shifting, for me that was more world building, but I thought it was awesome to see it, because that's not stuff you ever see.
Yeah. Bringing those elements out of the cultures that we know.
Any final thoughts, Malcolm?
But one thing I did want to touch on, because I noticed this throughout the episode, and you noted earlier about the young man who goes into town and
Theo,
the kid.
Yeah.
and you're speaking about it from a father's perspective, and all through this episode there are many nods to parents, and I'd say not necessarily that one is right or wrong, but kind of the gray area where there's some benefits to youth, but some benefits to adulthood.
I don't wish harm on that kid. He just gets my nerve in the right kind of way. No, I get it. I do really think that's great. And I want to thank everybody for staying with us and during this live podcast at Script Summit 2022.
Woohoo!
There is one other thing that I was going to say to that,
Go ahead,
which
Malcolm.
is, remember, the Dwarf King. He forbid everybody from
mining.
Yeah.
Yes.
His son was one who kept forward, just like Theo.
Yeah, you're sticking with the theme. I love it.
Sticking with theme.
That's perfect.
Well, even Galadriel. I mean, her family was like, "You got to put down the sword," and she's like, "I'm not done yet."
Yeah, but even with the Queen of Numenor and her father, right? They
Same
had
thing.
issues as well. So that was we had parent issues in this thematic episode. So very perfect. But anyway, I do want to thank the audience. I want to thank Malcolm and Kristy for joining us on this episode live at Script Summit 2022. This was awesome.
Yeah, it was.
All right, thank you. Yay! Hey, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter by using my handle @ScreenwriterPod. And if you liked the show, please support it by subscribing and sharing the episode on your social media.